Good afternoon. It is now once again 6:30 in the afternoon, 6:30 p.m. on a gorgeous Friday. And this is your host for the next 25 minutes of Hotline 21, Danny Kenyatta Davis, representing the 7th Congressional District in the greatest state in the United States of America. That is the state of Illinois. Today has been a good day. I've been out and moving around, moving about. I was just recently with the mayor of Chicago, the alderman of the 28th Ward, the state senator of the 5th District, the commissioner of housing, and we were at the Emanuel Apartments on Washington Boulevard, right next to the Buddy Bear Car Wash in the 3900 block on West Washington Boulevard. And oh, what a time did we have. We were celebrating the 72nd birthday of Miss Givens, who is the head of the LAC there, the Local Advisory Council. And of course, we were pleased that the Commissioner of Housing, Tracy Scott, was there, as Francine Washington, who is the head of all the local advisory councils, and she's the head of the Central Advisory Council. And there were individuals like Miss Mary Baldwin and others from the Rockwell Council. So all of these dignitaries and people were there celebrating Miss Givens' birthday. But more than that, they were there just simply celebrating the fact that they live in decent housing. They live in senior housing, a magnificent building that is subsidized by the federal government, of which I am a part. And of course, everybody told them all the great roles that different play. But I shared with them that the unit of government that I am involved with provides most of the money for public housing. And so when you see CHA, the Chicago Housing Authority, the rules and regulations for the operation of that authority comes from the government, the federal government, where I am a member of the 435 individuals who make up the House of Representatives, and we provide the resources. We appropriate the money to actually run public housing, and I'm pleased to be a part of that decision-making operation and apparatus. We have some sad news to report. One of our letter carriers, of course, has been killed, shot down today, and it's so unfortunate that people would take the life of someone trying to provide public service. Public service. The postal workers and postal unions and postal authority have put together a $250,000 reward. I mean, they are really upset. I just got off the telephone with the president of the local union here in Chicago, the letter carriers union, an outfit that I've worked closely with ever since I've been a member of Congress. But I used to work for the post office when I first came to Chicago. I got a job working for the Postal Service. And I worked there a little more than a year full-time. Then I worked there part-time for 3 or 4 years. And so I'm a big friend of postal operations. One could really say it was the first job that I had that I really liked, because the only jobs I'd had prior to that was working in the agricultural field. And that meant, of course, chopping cotton, picking fruit, picking berries, doing whatever it is that you had to do to try and make a living. So I have just given my pledge to not only the local union president, but also the person who was the local union president before he got elevated to becoming the assistant national treasurer. And that's Max Julian, dear friend of mine who grew up on the west side of Chicago, lives in Westchester, so he's a part. So my heart goes out to all the postal workers, especially all of the carriers who have to confront and be confronted with the violence in our streets every day, where individuals are endangered as they go out to deliver the mail. Our city and our country and our nation ought to be able to provide those individuals with the kind of security, sense of safety, sense of protection. And I certainly stand with the Postal Service and the postal unions to do everything we can possibly do to try and make that happen. I've got a couple of other announcements. Of course, we had a wonderful mail conference last Friday and last Saturday. It was off the chart at the Malcolm X College. And I want to thank President Sanders for giving us the opportunity to do the event there. But we also have coming up on the 25th of July a blood drive that's going to take place at 5730 West Division Street, which is the home of the Northwest Austin Council. It's going to begin at 10 o'clock and will go until pretty much the end of the day. Sickle cell anemia is still a very challenging disease that, for the most part, affects African Americans, people from the Mediterranean area, with something called Tay-Sachs disease, and there's no known cure yet. We are close, we think, to a cure for sickle cell. I serve as the co-chair of the Sickle Cell Caucus in the House of Representatives and in the Senate as well. We have a bicameral caucus, meaning that both House and Senate members collaborate and work together to help find treatment, help find money to pay for treatment, help provide education so that two people who carry the sickle cell trait can make a decision if they are attracted to each other. They can make a decision as to what they will do in the case of reproduction. Because the way that you really end up with sickle cell is that if two people who have the trait have children, then that child is in the possibility, big possibility, of becoming a sickle cell individual. That is, they may end up with sickle cell. So we keep working on it, but we need blood. So on the 25th, if you have an inclination and you're healthy and able to, why don't you meet us at 5730 West Division Street at 10 o'clock and be a donor. We are working with the Red Cross, with the Northwest Austin Council, with a number of other groups to try and generate the blood that is needed. People with sickle cell need transfusions. People with sickle cell have a lot of needs that they have. And with all the needs that they have to do everything that they can do to try and meet those needs. And we have to do everything that we can do to try and help them to meet those needs. So if you're willing to give blood, or if you just want to hear and know and understand and learn what is required, you can also meet us there at 10 o'clock on the 25th and participate in a forum, a discussion about sickle cell and how we can help reduce it, rid ourselves of it, and provide treatment for those individuals in the communities where we live. On the other front, on the political front, we watched a discussion among Republicans on last night and before last night as individuals talked about their goals and what they are looking for and seeking for the country. You know, there's a fellow named Gator Bradley who participates in a lot of things in the community. And oftentimes at meetings, as people are talking, Gator will say, "You better listen. You better listen." Well, we obviously are moving towards the 2024 election. And like Gator says, you better listen. You better listen. You better know it's happening. You got to know it's coming. And I am urging, and there's nothing political in a partisan political way about this. If you were 17 years old by the time of the primary election in the state of Illinois, you can vote. And if you are 18 years old, of course, you can vote, period. So please, if you are 18, If you have children or grandchildren who are 18, and I know that people say that young people don't understand, but you'd be shocked to know. There was a young fellow one time who was 19 years old, and he was known as the greatest general in the world at that time. And he was only 19 years old, Alexander the Great. And so you don't have to be old and have gray hair to know what's going on and to be engaged. There was another young fellow who was only 14 years old, and he was the founder of the city of St. Louis, Missouri, Augustus A. Chouteau. So you don't really have to get old and ancient or old and wise to register to vote. You can be young and athletic and virile, and you may not even know how much this means, but you can still know some. Oftentimes, when I close or end meetings, I will close them or end them by saying, I am not all people, but I am one. I cannot do all things, but I can do some. And that which I can do, I will do. And you should too. And don't ever think that what you do is not a part of what ultimately becomes. Decisions arrived, and if you think about people say, well, I'm not political. I'm not political. It is my position that any time two people interact, there's likely to be some politicking that goes on. And if two people agree with everything all the time, then one of them is unnecessary. The only time politicking occurs when you express yourself, when you speak to someone about what you think the world ought to be like, when you interact with someone, when you express a desire, or you express an opinion, you express how you want the world. I often say to people that my politics is like my religion. My religion has to do with the way I want the world to be. I want there to be a better world. My politics is designed to help the world become the way I want the world to be. And if you don't have any thoughts or ideas about what you want, then you are sort of missing something. Something is not included in your being. I want the world to be a world where people are not being killed unnecessarily. My religion wants the world to be a world where people are not killed unnecessarily, where people are not harmed unnecessarily, where people have enough food and are not hungry, where people are not sick and cannot get the kind of medical treatment that they need, where people learn to love one another. You know, I was reading a scripture not long ago that said, though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels and have not charity, I am as a sounding brass and a tinkling cymbal. And though I would have the gift of prophecy and knoweth all knowledge, if I have not charity, I am nothing. Charity giveth of itself. If I can help somebody as I travel along, if I can make the world become a world that people share with each other. You know, we have so much violence in our world, not only on the west side of Chicago, the south side of Chicago, all over the United States of America, but in Ukraine, where the Russians are bombing the Ukrainians, or in the Middle East, where the soldiers are killing unarmed citizens and children. I believe, just like I believe that for every drop of rain that falls, a flower grows. I believe that somewhere in the darkest part of the night, a flower is lit by the light of a candle, and the light flows. And so instead of just cursing the darkness, talking about how challenging and difficult things are, why don't we light a candle, try and stuff out the darkness? Dr. Martin Luther King said that you can't eradicate hate with hate. The only thing that gets rid of hate is love. What the world needs now is love, sweet love. It's the only thing that there is not enough of. And if we reach the point where we operate on the basis of goodness and helpfulness as opposed to evil thoughts, evil ideas, evil acts, and hurtfulness, then the world becomes a different and a better place. So let me thank you for entertaining the thoughts that I have conveyed on this Friday afternoon. It is always good to be with you. We go back to Washington next week after having been away for a few days, and I hope we will take back to Washington with us the thought that let America become the America that has never been, and yet the America it has the potential to be. I want to thank you all. It has been my pleasure, and don't forget, next Friday, come on down to 5730 West Division Street and participate with the American Red Cross, the Chicago chapter, ourselves, and give blood for sickle cell. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening. We'll see you next week.